Different design languages, different cover display implementations, different camera options, different SoCs. Though Samsung's Galaxy Z Flip and Motorola's Razr 50 Ultra, they might be flip phones with foldable displays, but they are very different phones. So which amongst these two is the better choice for you? Let's find out in today's video. Now if this is your first time here, or in case you just can't remember, my name's Ash, you're watching C4E Tech, and let's get started. First, let's start with the built-in design, and here, on paper at least, things seem simple. Samsung's shorter, narrower, and even slightly lighter. And the sides on the Z Flip 6 are brushed metal with a matte finish, so it doesn't pick up fingerprints or smudges like the glossy Razr does. And I love how the Z Flip 6 looks. But the Moto, it just feels a whole lot more comfortable to actually hold and use. Well, the Moto is 0.2mm thicker and 2mm wider. The fact that the sides are rounded means it's easier to hold and type on. And honestly, till I did the research for this video, from just using these two phones for about a month cumulatively, if you ask me which one was slimmer, I'd have sworn it was the Razr. Because the way it curves, it just feels like that in hand. The same curves also help you slip your finger in. I mean, if you want to open the phone single-handed. The hinge is also not as stiff as on the Z Flip 6. But I don't see that as an issue since the Razr can still hold pretty much any angle the Z Flip can. Now both phones have water resistance, but Samsung has an IP48 rating compared to Motorola's IPX8, so it's also dust resistant to a higher extent. Now on the flip side, the back being vegan leather, it adds to the grip and more importantly, the comfort factor. So overall, I feel this one, built-in design, it boils down to user preference, and this user right here prefers Motorola's comfort factor. What about you though? Let me know in the comments below. Next, let's get to the big one, the cover display. Here Motorola has a definite edge with a larger screen, 4 inches to Samsung's 3.4. It's also the sharper panel with a 417 ppi pixel density compared to Samsung's 306. The refresh rate's also higher, 165Hz compared to Samsung's 60. Now it's not just the size of the panel, but it's also about how Motorola has used it. How they've gone about the software. I really find it interesting. With Razr 50 Ultra, you can run pretty much every app off the cover display. And you can easily go full screen or switch to a black bar if the cameras end up blocking something important. Also, the extra width and the taller screen mean typing is not really that bad an experience. When I was in China, I'd often have to have these small little conversations with my editor on Slack. Little things like, have you downloaded the files I've uploaded? When can I see the final cut and stuff like that? And just using the cover display was very convenient for that. Now yes, you can do the same thing with the Z Flip 6 to run most apps off the cover screen, but not out of the box. Out of the box, you're limited to using a few select apps. You can, however, download the Good Lock app from the Samsung store, then install Multistar and add the launcher as a widget. It's just a little more work, but once you do that, you can use pretty much all apps on the cover screen, though it's not quite as convenient as on the Razr given the screen is smaller. Now the Z Flip 6, it does have its own advantages. I like how you can fit multiple widgets on a screen. The two-way translate option, it's so damn convenient when you travel. I absolutely loved it. And it's got Victus 2 for protection instead of Victus 1 as on the Razr 50 Ultra. Now switching to the display on the inside, the Razr has the larger screen, 6.9 inches to Samsung 6.7. Neither crease is visible when you're looking at the display head-on, but both can be noticed when light is reflecting off it. So it's more or less similar. The auto brightness max is about the same, and so is the resolution. But Razr does offer 165Hz refresh compared to the Z Flip 6's 120. Now honestly guys, 120Hz, 165Hz, it doesn't really matter. The displays, they're so close that I don't think they should really factor into your decision making on which phone you're choosing. What could factor into your choice though is the chip on the inside. Now the Z Flip 6, that's powered by the flagship Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. This has the one tier below 8S Gen 3. And I'm sure you'd have heard of Samsung's vapor cooling this time. So no competition, right? Well, if you saw my Mix Fold 4 video, this is what I had to say about throttling on foldables. You don't actually get the full power of the 8 Gen 3 here. Just see the benchmark numbers. And 3D Mark stress tests won't even complete. Okay, forget the theory. Now when you look at practical use cases like playing a game, you are going to be noticing more frame drops and stutters than you normally would on non-foldable 8 Gen 3 phones. Now this actually makes me wonder, do we really even need top spec chips for foldables? Because with normal usage, even multitasking, something like a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 on the Honor Magic VS3, it's gonna perform exactly the same. So why not go for that trade-off and save a few bucks? What do you think? Should brands launch foldables without flagship chips and drop the price? And here, yet again, we end up with the exact same question. Now let me explain. So this is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 for Galaxy on the Z Flip 6. And this is the Snapdragon 8s Gen 3 on the Razr 50 Ultra. Now the big difference between these two, it's not even the clock speeds, but the GPU. The GPU performance on the 8s Gen 3, it slots somewhere between the 8 Plus Gen 1 and the 8 Gen 2. So the Adreno 735 is weaker than the 750. But given the sleekness of foldables, regardless of if they are flips or folds, they're all gonna throttle. Now 3D Mark Extreme basically simulates a game being played, as in it stresses out your GPU to see how the phone responds when you're playing a game. And now if you notice the results, about 6 minutes in, the Z Flip 6 and the Razr 50 Ultra, they're kind of performing the same. Now as we continue, by the time loop 12 ends, which is about 12 minutes of the GPU being continuously pushed, the 8s Gen 3 on the Razr is outperforming the 8 Gen 3 on the Z Flip 6. So yeah, the Z Flip 6 has the stronger chip, but it feels like it's more of performance on paper that you're almost never going to be able to practically use. So what do you guys think? In this form factor, what would you pick? An 8s Gen 3 that runs more or less similar to an 8 Gen 3, or would you still prefer taking an actual 8 Gen 3? Let me know in the comments. Now while that might be up for discussion, what isn't is Samsung's superiority when it comes to software support. 7 years of updates compared to 3, Samsung comprehensively wins this one. From a software perspective, Samsung has some AI goodies that gives them an edge, and that lovely, amazing translator app that they call Interpreter. It is just awesome. I mean, I was in Shenyang, China for almost a month. Pretty much 99% of the people there did not speak any English, so I'm sure you get why I'm drooling over this. Now, a lot of the AI stuff you can do on the Moto 2 with Google Gemini, and what Razr has going for it is a much cleaner interface with a lot less bloat. Now yes, it's not completely stock, and Motorola have included some useful features like the flashlight gesture, but these are all neatly tucked away under the Moto app. With cameras, both have 50 megapixel primary shooters and perform more or less similarly. Motorola's images are a tad warmer, Samsung's a tad cooler, the detail levels are close. Like I said, they are more or less on par. Now there are 3 major differences though. Under mixed or low light, the highlight control is much better on the Z Flip 6. Let's see this board. This was shot during the day at an airport, but you get the idea. With selfies though, Motorola's 32 megapixel shooter, it's more detailed, the skin tones are better, and this even applies to selfies shot with a rear camera. The rest of it, more or less the same. And the third difference, it's the actual hardware being used. Now what do you want? Do you want an ultra-wide as a secondary camera? Now that's what the Z Flip 6 has to offer. Or do you want a 2x telephoto? That's what the Razr has to offer. Personally, I prefer what Samsung's done here because an ultra-wide in this form factor makes a lot more sense to me. When you're using the cover display to shoot selfies, having an ultra-wide, fitting more people into the picture, that seems more alluring to me. Now both phones have the exact same battery capacity, 4000 mAh. You'd think the one with the larger cover screen would have the worst battery life, right? Surprisingly not. In my combined almost 4 weeks with both these phones, the Razr 50 Ultra almost always lasted 10 to 15% longer than the Z Flip 6. And when it was time to charge, it took under an hour to go from 0 to 100 thanks to support for 45 watt charging. The Z Flip 6 took almost double that time since it maxes out at 25 watts. It's worth mentioning that both phones support wireless charging at the same speeds up to 15 watts, so no difference there. Now, I guess this is the best time to talk about value. Now the Razr 50 Ultra in India, Motorola sells only one SKU, 12512, and that's priced at 95,000 rupees. Yes, I'm aware there's a 5,000 rupee offer that gets the price down to 89,999, but let's ignore that for a moment. The Z Flip 6 on the other hand starts at 1.1 lakhs, but that's for the 256 gig variant. The 512, it's priced at 1.22 lakhs. Now Motorola offers a case and a charger in the box, and not just that, a 10,000 rupee Buds Plus. And this is not an offer, it's actually in the box, meaning it's unlikely that they stop doing it anytime soon. Now, if you do the actual math here, the Razr does offer better value. I like the Z Flip 6, sure, and if it were priced the same as the Moto, I'd say 90,000 rupees, I might actually choose it over the Razr. Because, that ultra-wide camera, the 7-year update policy, and mainly that lovely interpreter. Okay, I'm a little biased about it. I'm fanboying over it. I'm so sorry. But that said, given it's 30% more expensive for the same storage, and that's without even taking into account the accessories you're gonna have to buy that Motorola already includes for free, I'm gonna have to go with the Razr 50 Ultra here. What would you do if you had to choose between these two phones? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Ash out.